So, Rocky, welcome. And I am so glad to have you and talk with you for other folks to learn about this whole franchising process. But tell me, first of all, how in the world did you get into the franchising?
Thank you, Luke. I'm happy to be here and chat with you. Excited to chat and tell my story and hopefully help your folks. So I started in franchising early on. So I left law school knowing I wanted to do business law, and I had an idea that I was going to be a small business attorney, which there's a need for that, and I still do to some extent. But the hard part is finding clients, right? And what do you do? And about 2 months after I got my bar license, maybe less. Yeah, maybe it was a month and a half or a month or something. After I got my license and I was out the door working, I saw there was a franchise expo in Houston, and I took my last, I don't know, maybe $2,000, maybe it's 1,500, whatever it was, like the last bit left after law school, and I was like, I'm gonna get a booth, and this is make it or break it. I'm gonna hustle and sell my services and help people, or I'm gonna go back and work, I don't know, at the docks. So being there, I met a franchise attorney, and I was basically just there from my angle of a small business attorney, helping people do formations, understand contracts. But
Sure.
the guy next to me or behind me or wherever, the franchise attorney, he and I chatted, we got along, and he basically mentored me for the next few years in learning franchise law. And from that expo, I had clients, and it was not a lot, right? But it was enough to start growing, start learning the ropes, and then, of course, being mentored, and taking on some of the stuff that he could feed me. It just was enough to keep the train on the tracks. And from there, you just keep growing and keep learning, keep exploring how to bring value to people. And 10 years later, here I am.
What a
So,
great story. Thank you for
yeah.
sharing that. Hey, so let's say that I refer clients to you and they have their FDD, the franchisor that they're looking at, they're starting their due diligence process. They don't know what questions to ask, but we're getting there
Sure.
and educating them.
Yeah.
What is your process to help them through the FDD and franchise agreement?
Excellent. Great question. So our process is very similar, I think, yours, and that's education, right? So the nature of the franchise industry is that it's very structured already. It's very regulated. So even some things that maybe you'd want to change as a franchisee, you're not going to be able to get, not because the franchisor doesn't want to, but because of regulatory reasons, right? There's a whole gambit of reasons, right, out there, from regulatory to just the framework and structure and the nature of franchising, why things happen the way they happen in our industry. So my goal is to make sure that our clients are educated about what they're getting into, right? What that means in particular is understanding the franchise agreement, right? So understanding their legal obligations, understanding their expectations under that agreement, and what they're actually getting, right? What is actually legally binding in that franchise agreement, as opposed to maybe what the sales folks are saying at the franchisor, right? So a franchisee client who understands all of that coming from our office, regardless of whether they pursue the opportunity or not, that's a win for us, right? We're not looking at it, a franchise agreement, to chop it up and change certain things. We're looking to educate our client, and based on that education, our client tells us what they're worried about and what concerns they have, and we find ways to either request some modifications or find some ways to address it maybe outside of the franchise agreement, or counsel them through and help them understand that maybe that boogeyman that they're worried about is not such a boogeyman, right, in the franchise industry. Because there's a lot of things that, even if you've been a business person or business owner and you have done contracts in the past, and then you come to a franchise agreement, there's some big things in there that will scare you, right? Liquidated damages, excuse me, personal guarantees, timelines, right? Uh, Operations manual compliance that can change, and you don't know what the operations manual actually says until after you sign, right? Until after you're a franchisee, because of confidentiality requirements. But anyways, there's a whole, even if you're sophisticated coming to franchising, it can be scary. And so we help our clients understand all of that, right? And it's not necessarily that they need to make make a buy or not, whether they sign or not. It's making sure that they have the details necessary to make a business decision, right? And business decision is on them, right? We don't know your local market. We won't know the specific franchise vertical that you're in. Like I don't know the healthcare space. I know franchising, and I know franchising in the healthcare space, but I don't know healthcare, for example. But my goal is to give them the education in the franchise sector so that they can put it into their equation and make that business decision.
Mm-hmm. Great. And what are the work products that clients can expect
Yes.
working with you?
Excellent. Yeah. So when they sign up, they get immediate access to our courses. So right now, currently, we have a course on negotiating with your franchisor, and that walks you through how to craft a request to the franchisor and the things that give you leverage, right, so to speak, the touch points, the pressure points that you want to make in those negotiations, and just giving you some workflows and some ideas on how to do that. It also has a negotiation chatbot that I've created so that you can role play with yourself or with the chatbot to actually create that request and then actually try to negotiate that request with a franchisor. And it's pretty good. It's pretty cool. It's pretty challenging. So so they get immediate access to that. Then my team, we start reviewing the FDD, reviewing the franchise agreement. Excuse me. And what we do is we draft a summary review letter. Now, the summary review letter is it's not legalese. This is very, very conversational. This is me telling you my thoughts. And I will put citations in there. So you're going to get specific citations on the section that I'm talking about. But you're going to get comments like, hey, this system looks like it's very sales heavy. If you don't have a sales background, you're going to want to get a sales background, right? Or you're going to want to go above and beyond and learn sales, because the franchisor may bring you leads, but the franchisor does not close those leads. That's what you do, right? And that's a comment that I make, and sometimes that's a factor for the decision. Like if it's an engineer who doesn't do sales, right? Something like that. So it's conversational. It's pointing out important things that you need to know. And it's explaining things in the franchise agreement that you may not understand, things like liquidated damages, mandatory minimums, performance requirements, personal guarantees, non-competes, right? All the big stuff, and even some little stuff in there too. I just explain it to you very layman, just like we're sitting at a coffee shop or something talking, right? And then I send that to you. That's one deliverable you get customized, right? That's after we read your review, or your FDD rather. You get that review. And then the other course is the FDD companion course. So once you get the summary review letter, embedded in my comments are links to our companion course with videos that explain it a little deeper. So if reading it doesn't make sense, even though I try to do it just plain English, then go to the video. You can watch me explain it to you on video, and usually that gets us to the goal line, right, of making sure you got it. But if there's still things that worry you, then we also talk about it later. So once you have all that and the franchisee reviews it and understands it, then we schedule a conference call and we get on the phone. We talk through, really, I give them the floor first. I say, hey, tell me what you're worried about. What concerns you? What do you see that scares you? Tell me those things and let's talk through it. And they tell me what worries them, right? What their biggest concerns are. And we find ways to either address it, or submit questions to the franchisor, or submit a request, or potentially talk about ways to address it outside of the franchise agreement. So that takes us up to then the franchisee is in a position to negotiate the terms with the franchisor, right? We don't take lead in that because, frankly, I think my clients get better deals when they're dealing with salespeople as opposed to lawyers in the room. So I like that, but we're always behind the scenes. So if they have a conversation that they're not confident about, or they have questions, or they want to strategize another approach or something, they can always schedule another follow-up call. We can chat with them and walk through it. And then I guess the last deliverable there is the amendment, right? The addendum. Almost always that's handled by the franchisor's attorney. Then they send it to the client, and I tell the client, send it to us so we can make sure it's clear, that there's no confusion. usually it captures everything correctly, but sometimes every so often it's a little unclear to me, and I just want to make sure it's tight, right? Let's get it tightened up, because hey, in 10 years on renewal, you're not probably going to be dealing with the same person, maybe. Right? So
Right.
yeah, so that is the journey in regards to the deliverables and what you get and what we do.